It was a cold, rainy Thursday afternoon when something unexpected happened. The kind of thing that most people wouldn't even notice, but for Laura, it would change everything. She was the manager of a small cafe in the heart of a quiet town, a place where the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mixed with the sound of quiet conversation and the steady hum of the espresso machine. Her job wasn't glamorous, but it was everything she needed. Laura loved her cafe, loved the people who came in, and especially loved the chance to brighten someone's day with a cup of coffee or a warm smile. That afternoon, as the rain poured down, she was behind the counter, organizing the stock and preparing pastries for the next day. The cafe wasn't busy yet, but she expected it would be soon. It always picked up around the late afternoon as people stopped by to grab a warm drink on their way home from work. Laura had just finished making a fresh batch of croissants when she noticed a car pull up outside the cafe. It wasn't unusual for people to park outside, but there was something about this particular car that caught her attention. It was an older model, the kind of car that looked like it had seen better days. As Laura peered out the window, she saw the driver, a man in his 30s, getting out of the car looking frustrated. She couldn't quite see what was wrong, but the man seemed to be inspecting the engine under the hood, his movements slow and deliberate. After a moment, he slammed the hood shut, walked back to the driver's seat and sat there looking down at his lap. The rain kept falling harder now, soaking him through his jacket. Laura was used to seeing people pass by the cafe, but something about this man caught her eye. She felt a strange sense of empathy. She had seen people struggle, had witnessed enough moments of stress and frustration in the cafe to know that sometimes a little help could go a long way. Without really thinking about it, she grabbed her umbrella and headed out the door. The cold air hit her as soon as she stepped outside. She hurried over to the man who was still sitting in his car, staring ahead with his hands on the steering wheel. She knocked lightly on the window and the man looked up in surprise, his face a mixture of exhaustion and embarrassment. She smiled, trying to put him at ease. "Hey there," she called out through the rain. "It looks like you're having some trouble with your car." The man sighed and nodded, his frustration clear. "Yeah," he said, his voice tinged with defeat. "I don't know what happened. The engine just stopped and now it won't start again. I think I might be stuck here for a while." Laura paused for a moment, looking around. She knew she couldn't fix the car herself, but she also knew that standing out in the rain wasn't going to help the man any further.
She had an idea.
"Why don't you come inside?" she suggested. "I can make you a warm drink while you wait for the tow truck. It's not much, but it might make the wait a little more comfortable." The man hesitated for a moment, clearly unsure. Laura could see the hesitation in his eyes, the silent question of whether he should take a stranger up on such an offer. After a long pause, he finally nodded, grabbed his jacket, and got out of the car. Laura led him inside, where the warmth of the cafe was a welcome relief from the wet, cold outdoors. "Thank you," he said as he entered. "I really appreciate it. I wasn't sure what to do." "Don't mention it," Laura replied with a reassuring smile. "It's just a little thing. You've had a rough day, so the least I can do is offer you a drink. What would you like?" The man sat down at one of the tables by the window and looked around, his eyes scanning the cozy interior. He looked almost out of place in the quaint cafe, but at the same time he seemed to relax as the warmth and comfort of the cafe surrounded him. "I'll have whatever you recommend," he said, taking a deep breath. "Something strong. I could really use a pick-me-up right now." Laura nodded, then went to work. She started with a dark roast coffee, something bold, and added a splash of cream to make it smoother. As she prepared the drink, she noticed the man still staring out the window, his eyes distant. She could tell he wasn't just frustrated about the car. It was more than that. Something seemed off, like there was a weight on his shoulders that he couldn't shake. She set the cup of coffee in front of him with a small plate of cookies. "Here you go," she said, giving him another smile. "Hope this helps." "Thanks," he said, taking a sip and closing his eyes for a moment as the warmth of the drink seemed to settle into his bones. He seemed to relax a little more, and when he opened his eyes again, he met Laura's gaze. "You know, I've had a tough few months," he began, his voice quiet. "Lost my job. My apartment was flooded, and now my car breaks down in the middle of nowhere." He laughed, but it was a tired, hollow sound. "I don't know why I thought today would be any different." Laura felt a pang of sympathy for him. She had no idea what he was going through, but she understood what it felt like to have everything seem to fall apart at once. She took a seat across from him, leaning in a little as if to say that she was really listening. "I know it's tough," she said gently. "Sometimes it feels like things just keep piling up. But, things can change. You never know what tomorrow will bring." The man looked at her, his expression softening. "Yeah," he said quietly. "You're right. I guess I'm just trying to find my way." They sat in silence for a while, both of them content in the quietness of the cafe, the sound of rain tapping against the windows as the minutes passed. Laura didn't feel the need to rush him or offer empty words of encouragement. Sometimes just being there, offering a moment of peace, was enough. Eventually, the tow truck arrived and Laura walked the man out to his car. She waved him off as he drove away, the rain still falling in sheets around them. She had helped a stranger, a small act of kindness that, in that moment, felt like the right thing to do. Little did she know, it would be a decision that would completely alter the course of her life. As Laura returned to the cafe, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. She had no idea that her kindness would set in motion a chain of events that would leave her life turned upside down. It wasn't until later that night that she would learn the true impact of her actions, and the cost. The next morning, Laura awoke to the sound of her phone buzzing on the bedside table. She rubbed her eyes, still groggy from the night before, and picked it up. The screen was filled with notifications. A few texts, some emails, and a string of messages from social media accounts she didn't recognize. It didn't take long to realize something was going on. She opened one of the messages and her heart skipped a beat. It was from one of the regular customers who visited her cafe. The message read, "I saw the news. I can't believe what happened to you. Are you okay?" Laura frowned, still unsure of what the message was referring to. She glanced at the time, 8:30 a.m. She had a busy day ahead, but the flood of messages was making her feel uneasy. As she scrolled through her phone, she saw it. News articles, social media posts, and even a video all sharing her story. The headline read, "Cafe manager fired for helping stranded driver in the rain." Laura sat up in bed, her heart racing. She couldn't believe it. The incident from the day before, the kind gesture she thought would go unnoticed, had somehow made its way into the media. Her phone was buzzing constantly, each notification making her more anxious. She quickly grabbed her robe and ran downstairs to the kitchen, trying to make sense of everything. Her mind raced. How did this all happen? Who shared the story? Was it the man she helped? She wasn't sure, but she knew something had gone terribly wrong. The cafe had always been her safe place, a refuge where she could connect with people. She had never expected something so simple as helping a stranger to end with such consequences. The news was everywhere. Even the local news station had picked up the story, and her boss's angry face appeared on TV, explaining how Laura had been fired for abandoning her duties. Laura was shocked and hurt. She never expected her simple act of kindness to cause so much trouble. She had only been trying to help a man in need, someone who was stranded in the rain with a broken car. It wasn't long before the phone call started. Her boss, of course, was the first to call. He was livid, his voice harsh and accusatory. "I can't believe you did that," he said, his tone full of frustration. "I told you not to get distracted. Now look what's happened. You've embarrassed me and you've embarrassed the cafe. You're fired. Don't come back." Laura felt the sting of those words. The cafe had been her world for so long, and now it was all falling apart. She wanted to protest, to explain that she hadn't meant any harm, but her boss wasn't listening. He hung up abruptly, leaving her standing there, holding her phone in disbelief. As the day went on, more and more people reached out to Laura. Some were friends, others were customers who had become like family. They were all shocked by the news and couldn't understand why she was fired for helping someone. The messages flooded in from every direction, some offering words of comfort, others offering support. Laura felt overwhelmed, but also strangely uplifted. She had never realized how much she meant to the people who came into the cafe every day. But there was one message that stood out. It came from a man she had never met before. His message simply read, "I'm the guy you helped yesterday. I wanted to thank you again. I don't think you realize just how much that moment meant to me. Let's talk." Laura read the message several times, trying to make sense of it. She didn't know what he meant by "let's talk," but she knew she had to respond. She quickly typed back, "Of course. I'm glad I could help. Let me know when you're free." It wasn't long before the man called. His voice was warm, and there was something comforting about the way he spoke. He introduced himself and explained that he had been the one stranded in the rain the day before. His name was Alex, and he had been in town for business when his car broke down. But what Laura didn't expect was what came next. "I saw the story about you on the news," Alex said, his voice calm. "And I want you to know that I was the one who reached out to the media. I'm sorry if that caused any trouble, but I just felt like what you did was so rare, so kind that people needed to know. You didn't have to help me, but you did. And that kind of kindness shouldn't go unnoticed." Laura was speechless. She hadn't expected this at all. Alex went on to explain how he had been so impressed by her genuine care that he felt compelled to share her story. He said he had mentioned her kindness to a few friends, and the next thing he knew, the story had snowballed. The media picked it up, and soon everyone knew about the cafe manager who had gone out of her way to help a stranger. "I know this might sound strange," Alex continued, "but I want to do something to help you. I don't think it's fair that you lost your job for doing something good. I run a company, and we're looking for people like you, people who genuinely care about others. I'd love to talk about an opportunity if you're interested." Laura's head was spinning. She had never expected her simple act of kindness to lead to something like this. She had no idea who Alex was or what he did. But the idea of being offered a job for doing something as small as offering a warm drink to a stranger seemed unbelievable. She was still processing everything, but she agreed to meet him the next day to learn more. As she hung up the phone, Laura felt a mixture of emotions. She was grateful for Alex's kindness, but at the same time, she was still heartbroken about losing her job. The cafe had been her life, and she wasn't sure what to do now. But one thing was clear: something had shifted. The kindness she had shown to a stranger had set off a chain of events that would change her life in ways she could never have imagined. Later that evening, as Laura sat in the quiet of her living room, she reflected on everything that had happened. She thought about how helping that man had felt so natural to her. It wasn't a big deal, just a small moment of kindness. But sometimes those small moments could turn into something much bigger. She had no idea what was going to happen next, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, this was the beginning of a new chapter in her life. The next day arrived quicker than Laura expected. She had spent the night tossing and turning, her mind racing with thoughts of what had happened. Her phone had kept buzzing throughout the evening with messages from friends, customers, and even strangers. Everyone seemed to have an opinion about what happened. Some were outraged that she had been fired for such a small act of kindness, while others expressed their support for her. Laura felt both overwhelmed and humbled. It was hard to believe that just helping someone out of the rain had spiraled into something so big. But amid all the noise, one message stood out: a call from Alex, the man she had helped. He had invited her to meet with him and discuss the opportunity he mentioned. She wasn't sure what to expect, but the idea of getting out of her current situation and exploring something new felt like the only way forward. She decided to take the leap, even though uncertainty still lingered in her heart. The meeting was set for noon, at a small cafe in the next town over. Laura felt a little nervous as she drove there. What did Alex really want? Was this some sort of business pitch? Or was it just a kind gesture from someone who had been touched by her actions? She couldn't tell, but she knew she had to at least hear him out. It wasn't every day that someone reached out to help in such an unexpected way. When Laura arrived, she saw Alex sitting at a table near the window. He was casually dressed in a hoodie and jeans, looking completely different from the image of a businessman she had imagined. He smiled when he saw her, and she immediately felt more at ease. There was something disarming about him. His calm presence seemed to put her nerves at ease. "Hey, Laura, I'm glad you could make it," he said, standing to shake her hand. "Thanks for inviting me," she replied, taking a seat across from him. "I wasn't sure what to expect, but I appreciate you reaching out, no problem. I just wanted to talk, to see if there's something I can do to help you," Alex said, his tone sincere. "I know this might sound strange, but I think there's something here. You've got a real connection with people. People love you. And I want to help you find a way to keep that going." Laura felt a wave of emotion hit her. She had always known she had a special connection with the customers at the cafe, but she never imagined it would lead to someone wanting to help her like this. She took a deep breath and leaned forward, listening intently. Alex continued, "I run a small tech startup that focuses on community engagement. We've been looking for someone who understands the importance of building genuine relationships, Someone who can connect with people on a personal level. That's where you come in. I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but I think you'd be amazing at helping us build something new, a new kind of space where people can come together, share ideas, and just feel like they belong. Laura blinked, taking in what he was saying. She had never considered herself as someone who could do something beyond running a cafe. But hearing Alex's words made her realize that she had always felt drawn to helping others, to creating a space where people could come and be themselves, away from the chaos of the world. "I'm not sure I understand," she said, frowning slightly. "Are you offering me a job?" Alex nodded, sort of. "But it's more than just a job. It's a partnership. I want you to help us create something new, something that combines the community aspect of a cafe with the power of technology. We're thinking of opening a new place that focuses on bringing people together, offering food and drinks but with a twist. We'd incorporate things like workshops, local events, and maybe even online forums for people to connect." Laura was stunned. She had always loved the idea of creating something more than just a cafe, something that could actually make a difference in people's lives. She had seen how simple interactions could brighten someone's day, and the thought of building a space where that could happen more regularly was exciting. But at the same time, she had no experience in tech or running a business of that scale. "I don't know anything about tech, Alex," she admitted, her voice tinged with doubt. "I'm just a manager at a cafe. I've never built anything like what you're describing." "That's the thing, though," Alex said with a smile. "You don't need to know everything. What you have, the ability to connect with people, to create an environment where they feel safe and valued, that's something you can't teach. That's what we need. I've got the tech side covered. I just need someone who understands what it takes to build community, someone who truly cares about the people they serve." "That's you, Laura." Laura sat quietly for a moment, absorbing what he was saying. She felt a sense of excitement stirring within her, but also a deep fear of stepping into the unknown. She had never been one to take risks, especially when it came to her career. But there was something in Alex's words that made her think twice about staying in a job that no longer felt right. "Are you saying you want me to leave the cafe?" she asked, her voice uncertain. "I'm not saying you have to leave it completely," Alex replied. "But I do think this could be a great opportunity for you to take your passion for people to the next level. Think about it. This would be your chance to build something that's entirely yours. Something that's not just about making coffee or serving food. It's about creating a space where people can feel like they belong. I think you'd be amazing at it." Laura looked down at her hands, her mind racing. She thought about the cafe, the familiar faces she had served for years, and how much she would miss the place if she left. But she also realized that she had always felt a yearning for something more. The cafe had been a great start, but maybe it was time to try something new. Something that aligned more closely with her values and the way she wanted to impact the world. "I'm not sure I'm ready for something like this," she said, her voice soft. "It's also overwhelming." Alex nodded. "I get it. This isn't an easy decision, but just think about it. You'd have the chance to build something bigger than yourself, something that could help a lot of people. And I'll be here to support you every step of the way. You don't have to do it alone." Laura thought about what he was saying, her heart torn. She had always played it safe, content with the small world she had built, but maybe, just maybe, it was time to step outside her comfort zone. She had already taken one leap by helping that man, Alex, and look where it had brought her. "I'll think about it," she said finally, her voice steady. "I don't want to make a hasty decision, but I'll think about it." Alex smiled, clearly relieved. "Take your time. This doesn't have to be a rush. I just wanted to plant the seed and see where it goes." As they finished their coffee, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. But Laura couldn't stop thinking about the possibility that lay before her. It felt like a dream, an opportunity that most people would never get. But was she ready to take the plunge? When she left the cafe later that afternoon, her head was spinning with questions. Could she really do this? Could she leave the comfort of her old life and step into something so unknown? She didn't have all the answers yet, but she knew one thing for sure. Things were about to change, and she couldn't wait to see where this new path would take her. The days that followed were a blur of emotions and decisions for Laura. She felt a mix of excitement and uncertainty that seemed to follow her everywhere she went. Alex had given her an incredible opportunity, but it was an opportunity that came with risks. Risks she hadn't fully considered when she first agreed to meet with him. Now, as she thought about it more, She realized how big of a change this would be. Leaving the cafe wasn't something she could do lightly. It had been her home for years. It wasn't just a place of work. It was where she had built relationships, connected with people, and found a sense of purpose. The thought of leaving all of that behind felt like an impossible choice. Yet in the quiet moments of reflection, Laura also realized that she had been feeling restless for some time. The routine of the cafe, though comforting, had started to feel stifling. She had grown, and the world outside her familiar space seemed to be calling her. As the week went on, Laura spent more time with Alex. They met several times to talk about the idea of creating a new space, one that combined the community-building aspect of a cafe with modern technology. Each meeting left her with a little more clarity, but it also raised new questions. What would it really look like? Could she handle such a big responsibility? Would people accept the change, or would they resist it? Despite her doubts, Laura couldn't help but feel a growing sense of excitement. She had always enjoyed creating spaces for people to connect, whether it was over coffee, a meal, or even just a conversation. The idea of building something that could provide those connections on a larger scale, something that could make a real difference in people's lives, felt like something she had been waiting for. One afternoon, after meeting with Alex to discuss the project in more detail, Laura found herself walking through the park near her home. The weather was clear, the sun peeking through the trees, and the quiet beauty of the surroundings gave her a sense of peace. She sat on a bench by the lake, the sound of the water lapping against the shore calming her racing thoughts. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was a message from one of the regulars at the cafe, someone she had known for years. He had been one of the first to reach out to her after the news broke. "Hey Laura, just wanted to check in. You doing okay? Everyone at the cafe misses you." Laura smiled as she read the message, feeling a lump form in her throat. She had spent so many hours behind the counter, talking with people like him, making them feel welcome. It wasn't just a job, it had become a family. And now, she was thinking about leaving that all behind. Her mind wandered back to Alex and the vision he had for the new space. What he had said about creating a place where people could come together, share ideas, and truly belong was a compelling idea. It was something she could see herself doing. But could she really make that leap? Could she walk away from everything she knew and try something new? A few days later, the decision became more pressing. Alex invited Laura to a meeting where they would present their idea to a group of potential investors. He had explained that if they could secure the right backing, they could move forward with the project and start making their dream a reality. The stakes were higher now. This wasn't just a casual conversation anymore. It was becoming a business. Laura felt the weight of it all. She had to decide whether to take the plunge or to stay in her safe, familiar world. The cafe had been her anchor for so long, but perhaps it was time for her to step out into the unknown. She needed to be honest with herself about what she wanted. On the day of the meeting, Laura was nervous but determined. She arrived at the sleek, modern office building where the meeting would take place. She was greeted by Alex and the others on his team, all of them dressed in professional attire. It was a sharp contrast to the laid-back atmosphere of the cafe she had known for years. As they entered the conference room, Laura couldn't help but feel a little out of place. The room was filled with well-dressed professionals, all of them busy talking business. But Alex had assured her that she was there because of her experience with people. Her ability to create a space where people felt like they mattered. That's what they needed. The meeting began with introductions, and soon, Laura found herself sitting across from a group of investors who were listening intently to Alex's pitch. He talked about the idea for the new space, how it would focus on building community and fostering connections. He explained how they planned to integrate modern technology, creating a platform where people could interact both online and in person. He talked about how Laura's role would be crucial in ensuring that the space maintained its focus on the human element, the heart of what they were trying to create. As Alex spoke, Laura felt a growing sense of belief in the project. She had always known that she had a gift for connecting with people, and here was an opportunity to use that gift on a larger scale. The investors asked questions, probing for details about the logistics and potential challenges, but Laura felt confident in the vision they were presenting. This was something real. This was something she could be a part of. After the meeting, as they walked out of the building, Alex turned to Laura. "How do you feel?" he asked, his voice filled with anticipation. I feel good, she replied, a smile tugging at her lips. This could really work. I think it will, Alex said, his expression bright. You were great in there. You've got the passion and the experience we need. This is just the beginning, Laura. The next few days were a whirlwind. The investors seemed genuinely interested in the project and the excitement was palpable. Laura continued to meet with Alex and the team, discussing the finer details of the space they hoped to create. They talked about the design, the atmosphere, the kind of events they wanted to host, and how they could ensure that every person who walked through the door felt welcomed and valued. At the same time, Laura was still processing the reality of what she was about to do. She had spent years working in the cafe, building relationships with her customers and creating a space that people loved. But now she was on the brink of something bigger, something that had the potential to impact even more lives. And though the fear of the unknown still lingered, Laura knew deep down that she had made the right choice. She was ready to take the leap. Weeks passed and things started to fall into place. The investors were on board. The plans were coming together and Laura felt more certain with each passing day. She was no longer just a cafe manager. She was about to become part of something that could truly change the way people connected with each other. On the day the final agreements were signed, Laura stood in the empty space that would soon become the new cafe. It was a blank canvas, but it was full of potential. She imagined what it would look like when it was filled with people coming together, sharing stories, ideas, and laughter. It wasn't going to be easy, but she was ready for the challenge. This was her chance to make a lasting impact, to create a place that could change lives. As she stood there looking around the empty room, she felt a sense of pride and excitement bubbling inside her. It was a new beginning, one that she couldn't wait to start. And this time she was doing it for herself, for the people she cared about, for the community she had always wanted to build. The journey was just beginning, but Laura knew one thing for sure. The leap she had taken was the right one. The best was yet to come. As the months passed, Laura found herself immersed in the whirlwind of turning her dream into a reality. The cafe space that had once been empty and full of potential was now coming to life. Every day brought something new. Decisions to make, obstacles to overcome, and moments of pure excitement as the vision she had worked so hard for began to take shape. It wasn't easy, but with each challenge she felt more confident in her ability to lead the way. The initial nervousness she had felt about stepping away from her old life had slowly faded. In its place, a sense of purpose grew. Every morning when she woke up, she could feel the energy buzzing inside her. She wasn't just managing a cafe anymore. She was building a community. A place where people could come together, share stories, and feel at home. The space was designed to be warm and inviting, with cozy seating arrangements, soft lighting, and walls decorated with local art. There was a small stage in the corner for live music and talks, and a corner dedicated to books and board games for people who wanted to relax or meet others. Laura worked closely with Alex and the team to make sure everything felt welcoming and aligned with their shared vision. On opening day, the cafe was filled with a buzz of excitement. There were familiar faces, regulars from the old cafe who had supported Laura from the beginning, as well as new faces, eager to see what this new space was all about. Laura's heart swelled with pride as she watched people walk through the door, greeted by the warm atmosphere and the smell of fresh coffee. As the day went on, Laura found herself moving between tables, chatting with customers, checking on the staff, and making sure everything was running smoothly. She had created a space where people could relax, but she didn't want to lose the personal touch she had always brought to the old cafe. She wanted people to feel seen, heard, and valued. That was what mattered to her most. Everything's going great, one of the staff members said as Laura walked by. She gave him a smile and a thumbs up, grateful for how smoothly everything was going. Yeah, Laura replied. But we still have a lot to do. We've only just begun. As the afternoon wore on, a group of customers approached her at the counter. One of them, a woman who had been sitting with her friends for a while, looked up at Laura and smiled. We've been hearing about this place for weeks, she said. We're so glad it finally opened. I can tell this is going to be our new favorite spot. Laura's heart swelled with emotion. It was exactly what she had hoped for. A place that felt like home where people could gather, share, and create memories together. As the evening set in, The cafe became even livelier. The music started, and people began to fill the small stage to enjoy the performances. Laura watched from the back, her heart full. This was what it was all about, bringing people together, creating something special. She had built this space from the ground up, and now it was alive with laughter, conversation, and connection. The next few weeks brought more challenges. There were days when things didn't go as planned. Staff had to call in sick, suppliers didn't deliver on time, or the line to order coffee seemed endless. But through it all, Laura remained determined. She knew there would be tough days, but she was ready for them. She had always been the kind of person who didn't give up easily. The journey was long, but it was worth it. One of the biggest challenges came when a large corporation in town opened a new cafe just down the street. At first, Laura was nervous. The competition felt fierce, and she wondered if people would choose the big, shiny cafe over her small, community-centered space. But instead of giving in to fear, she decided to double down on what made her place unique. Its personal touch, its focus on community, and the relationships it nurtured. The cafe's events started to gain more traction. Laura and her team hosted open mic nights, cooking classes, book clubs, and workshops that brought people together in meaningful ways. Soon they began to build a loyal following, people who didn't just come for the coffee, but because they felt like they were part of something bigger. They felt like they belonged. One evening, as Laura was locking up the cafe after a particularly busy day, a couple walked up to her. They had been regulars for a while, and Laura recognized them immediately. "You know," the woman said, "we come here all the time, and it's become our place. It's the one spot where we feel like we can just relax, talk, and enjoy ourselves without feeling rushed. You've created something really special." Laura smiled, her heart full. She had worked so hard to create a space where people felt welcomed, and it was moments like these that reminded her why she had made the leap in the first place. But as much as the cafe had become a success, Laura knew that the journey wasn't over. There were always new challenges to face, new goals to reach. Alex had continued to support her every step of the way, and the two of them started to talk about expanding the concept. Maybe they could open more locations, or perhaps they could partner with other businesses in the area to reach even more people. As the cafe grew, so did the community around it. The local businesses started working together more closely, creating a network of support that benefited everyone. People began to see the cafe not just as a place to grab a drink, but as a hub of connection, where ideas were shared, friendships were formed, and a sense of belonging was fostered. One morning, as Laura sat down to plan out the month's events with her team, she realized just how far they had come. What had started as a small act of kindness, a simple decision to help a man in need, had led to something much bigger. She had built a community, a place where people could come together and feel at home, no matter where they were from or what they had been through. It had taken time, hard work, and plenty of obstacles along the way, but it had been worth it. Every challenge, every long night, every bit of stress and uncertainty had led to this moment. The cafe was thriving, and it had become an integral part of the community. Laura thought back to that rainy day when she had helped the man with the broken-down car. At the time, it had felt like such a small, simple thing, but that one act of kindness had set everything in motion. It had led her to a new path, one that she had never expected but was so glad to be on. In that quiet moment, sitting in the cafe with a cup of coffee in hand, Laura realized something important. Sometimes the smallest decisions, the ones that seem insignificant at the time, can have the biggest impact. She had never imagined that helping a stranger in need would lead to something this big, but it had, and now she had a place that felt like home, not just for her but for everyone who walked through the door. The cafe had become more than just a business. It had become a symbol of connection, of community, and of the power of kindness. And as Laura looked around at the people who had made this all possible, the team, the customers, the friends, she knew that this was only the beginning. The future was bright. And for Laura, the journey had just begun. The cafe had grown in ways that Laura never imagined possible. It was no longer just a local favorite. It had become a cornerstone of the community. What began as a small, humble space had transformed into something much bigger, something with far-reaching effects. People came from all over town, some from neighboring areas, just to experience what had become known as the heart of the community. It was the place where strangers became friends, where local talent was showcased and where ideas were exchanged over coffee. Laura stood behind the counter one afternoon, looking out over the bustling cafe. The sounds of laughter, clinking cups, and the low murmur of conversations filled the air. She felt an immense sense of pride in everything they had built together. It hadn't been an easy road, but the joy she felt every time someone walked in the door was more than worth the struggles and long hours. As the cafe continued to thrive, the team became more than just colleagues. They were a family. They shared not just a passion for coffee and good food, but also a deep commitment to creating an atmosphere of warmth and inclusivity. They worked together seamlessly, each person bringing their unique strengths to the table. Whether it was managing the events, keeping the space clean and inviting, or connecting with customers, everyone played a crucial role in making the cafe the special place it had become. But despite the cafe's success, Laura couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. There were moments when she felt a sense of uncertainty, a feeling she hadn't had in a while. As much as she loved what she had created, she began to realize that she had spent so much time focusing on building the cafe that she had neglected other parts of her life. Her phone buzzed on the counter, snapping her out of her thoughts. She glanced at it, noticing a message from Alex. They hadn't spoken in a few days due to the busyness of the cafe, but she smiled, grateful for the connection. "I think it's time to talk about the future," the message read. Laura stared at the text for a moment, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. The cafe had been her focus for so long, and now, Alex was suggesting they talk about the future, what that future would look like. She wasn't sure if it was about expanding the business or something else entirely, but she knew it was time to have that conversation. Later that afternoon, Alex arrived at the cafe. He walked in with a grin, his usual easygoing energy filling the room. Laura greeted him warmly and they settled into a quiet corner to talk. "I've been thinking a lot about everything we've done here," Alex began, his tone thoughtful, "and I think it's time to start looking beyond just this place. We've built something special, Laura, but I know you've always wanted to do more, to reach more people. So, let's talk about what comes next." Laura's heart raced at the thought. She had always dreamed of creating something larger, something that could have an impact on even more lives. The idea of expanding, of reaching more people was thrilling. But at the same time, she knew it would come with new challenges. "What do you have in mind?" she asked, eager to hear his thoughts. Alex leaned in, his eyes bright with excitement. "I think it's time for us to start thinking about opening additional locations." "I know it seems like a big step, but we've proven the concept here and people are responding. It's time to share it with other communities. We could start small, maybe in neighboring towns, and then see where it takes us." Laura sat back in her chair, processing what he was saying. The idea was both exhilarating and intimidating. She had always loved the idea of growing the business, but this was different. This was about scaling something that had been built on such a personal, intimate level. Could it work in other places? Would the same sense of community and connection translate to new locations? "I don't know, Alex," Laura said, her voice uncertain. "This place, it feels so personal, you know? It's not just about coffee and food. It's about the relationships we've built, the way people feel when they walk in. How do we make sure we can carry that feeling with us to new locations?" Alex smiled, understanding her concerns. "That's exactly why I wanted to talk to you about it. I know how important the atmosphere is here, but I think we've learned enough to make sure that the same feeling can exist in new spaces. We can focus on the same core values, community, connection, and inclusivity no matter where we go. And we'll take everything we've learned from this cafe and apply it. It won't be the same as opening just another store. It'll be an extension of what we've built here." Laura thought for a moment, weighing the possibilities. She realized Alex was right. The success of the cafe had never been about the physical space. It was about the people, the experiences, and the environment they had created. That essence could be carried to new places as long as they stayed true to what mattered most. "I'm in," she said finally, her voice full of resolve. "Let's do it. Let's bring this to other communities. But we do it right. We don't rush it." Alex nodded, clearly pleased with her decision. "Absolutely. We'll take it one step at a time. We've built something solid here, and we'll build the same thing just in new locations." The conversation continued, and over the next few weeks they began to make plans. They started researching potential locations, looking for communities that would appreciate what they had to offer. They also discussed how they could stay true to the values that had made the cafe such a success, ensuring that every new location would feel just as warm and welcoming as the first. As the plans took shape, Laura found herself feeling both excited and a little overwhelmed. The idea of expanding meant more work, more responsibility, and more uncertainty, but it also meant reaching more people, helping more communities build connections, and creating a larger network of support for the vision they had started. Through it all, Laura never lost sight of what mattered most. The cafe had always been about creating a space where people felt seen, heard, and valued. That would never change. Whether they had one location or 100, the focus would always be on the people they served and the community they created. Months later, the first new location was ready to open. It was in a small town just an hour away, but it felt like a world apart from the original cafe. The space was smaller, but it had the same welcoming vibe. The team had worked hard to make it feel like home, and the response from the local community was overwhelming. People showed up in droves, eager to experience what they had heard so much about. It was clear that the sense of connection that had made the original cafe so special was something that could be replicated. Opening the new location felt like a milestone, but it also felt like the beginning of something much bigger. Laura realized that the journey was far from over. They had created a foundation, but now it was time to build on it. There would be more locations, more people to connect with, and more opportunities to make a difference. The road ahead was long, but Laura was ready for it. She had learned that no matter how daunting the future seemed, taking it one step at a time was the best way forward. Looking around the cafe, watching people connect, share stories, and enjoy each other's company, Laura knew that this was just the beginning. The journey she had started with one simple act of kindness had led her here, and now she was ready for whatever came next. The future was bright, and Laura couldn't wait to see where it would take her, and all the people whose lives she would touch along the way.